Here to read for you a short story called Blossoms. I wrote this as a tribute to Dr. Carl Sagan. It's a story about wonder. I'm referring to the wonder a child feels when experiencing new things. Those of us who manage to retain this feeling throughout our lives are very fortunate indeed. This is a story of Abby, a young girl, filled with the wonder of life as she wandered the few untilled acres of her family's farm. There were woods here, and clearings with wild grasses and other plants. Abby was excited by a myriad of natural things, many of which she had never seen or experienced before. To her eyes, the dandelion was a lovely blossom. A field covered with them seemed like a golden blanket spread upon the ground. She had asked her mother this morning if she could walk alone through the fields and woods. Mother smiled and patted her shoulder. "Try not to get your dress dirty, dear." So off Abby had run. It was nearly impossible for her to walk. There was too much to see, too much to experience. So she ran, she skipped, she hopped, till she saw something new, which she must simply must investigate. Then she stopped running and skipping when she reached the field of dandelions. She gasped, now walking slowly, looking down all the while, until she reached the middle of the field. Then Abby sat down. It was amazing. To be surrounded by yellow blossoms was like magic. She reached down and picked a blossom, first smelling it, then rubbing its softness against her cheek. She lay back in the bed of dandelions and gazed up at the soft white clouds passing over her head. She'd seen clouds many times before, of course, but their ever-changing shapes still seemed magical. Sometimes it seemed like everything was magical, at least until it was explained. Well, she supposes there must be a reason for everything. Abby had a child's ability to experience things just as they are, even if it didn't have a name. It simply was what it was, and that was wonderful enough. A little while later, she wandered into a grove of wild apple trees. Abby gasped when she saw them, because they were in full blossom, and each tree seemed to be dressed in a lovely white wedding gown, and indeed, each tree was. She knew she had to stay here for a while. She was in a very special place, completely surrounded by beauty, by the elegance of life. Abby sat beneath one of the apple trees, leaning against its trunk. Nearly everywhere she looked, she saw more white blossoms. She reached up to a low branch and picked a single blossom. She held it tenderly by its stem between her thumb and forefinger. She held it before her eyes, studying its fragile beauty. She'd never seen anything more beautiful. 1 billion light years away, in another galaxy, a planet similar to where Abby lives revolves around its own sun. We cannot know if this distant planet harbors life as ours does, but there are billions and billions of stars and planets. Would it be unusual if none of them were remotely like ours? And out of those billions and billions, it should not seem impossible that on one of them, or maybe many, a young girl might lie on her back in a bed of dandelions, gazing up in wonder at the ever-changing clouds. It's not unreasonable that Perhaps some intelligent being can see the tiny blue dot of our own planet through a telescope or through some other means of which we're not aware. Perhaps there are astronomers, somewhat like our own, gazing through the light years. If their telescopes have enough power, they might see our Earth, a tiny, pale blue dot among billions of other tiny dots. Seen closer, they might see the white clouds in our sky. Seen closer yet, perhaps a small farm with an apple orchard, and sitting in the orchard, her back against a tree, a young girl who's marveling about the mysteries of life, holding a blossom in her hand. Everything she does, as well as everything everyone else does, constantly affects this vast universe in some unmeasurable, infinitesimal way. There's no way to avoid affecting it. It's simply the way things work. Abby gazes at the blossom and holds it very gently. She draws deep breaths, inhaling the fragrance of the blossoms on the trees. Then she arises, anxious to share her discovery with Mother. Abby walks very slowly all the way home, holding the blossom before her. She knows she has found something precious. She knows she should be very careful.